project in itself. Ang objectives dito, increase public value derived from converting public lands to shared green spaces, design institutional arrangements to convert public lands into green spaces available to the public, especially lower income households, and then design financing arrangements to sustain placemaking in green spaces. So, the assumption here is that there are some vacant public lands owned by the different agencies. No, could be DepEd, could be whatever, DPWH, lying idle, they're fenced off, and they could be green spaces provided, made available to the public at little or no cost to the agency that owns that property. And then, it could be as easy as tearing down the fence, baka mga iba, baka may land preparation, baka may rubble doon, or kailangan i-clear para mas malinis, mas child-friendly. And then design institutional arrangements. Who would do enterprise? The city, some city office, or an NGO doing this. And then who will pay for this? No, parang sabihin ng DPWH, okay, sige, that land has been idle for 10 years, pero it's awkward for us to spend the conversion, to convert this into a park because hindi namin yan mandate. Pero kung paggamit ng park hanggang kakailanganin namin, pwede. So how, who pays for it and what kind of arrangement? Ikaw, Jude, ano yung thoughts mo dito? And maybe in particular, di ba?
Sige. Pwede rin green spaces, not necessarily parks.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of the pandemic, at saka yung movement na sharing, no? So urban gardens, no, would also be one variation to this theme.
Mm-hmm.
It's a variant. No? Uso ang variants ngayon.
Mm-hmm.
So sila JC Tihano, they have an urban green coalition, no? So they have a Facebook. That's one resource. And in conversations with them, when we started talking, asking the question, asan ba yung public lands na yan? The first one that JC and I talked about are the easements from the easements along Tulyahan River, along the other rivers, Pasig River, that in the past 10 years have started to be cleared of settlers. So there is a challenge then. How do you take care of these easements from the water line so that they will remain open? Yung IPD works with Kilos Moralita, di ba? And at least 2 communities have already started vacating these easements at 3 meters from the water line. In some countries, yung easements na yan, yung pahaba along the water line, nagiging bike lanes yan. So
bike lanes.
So that would be a second kind of permutation ng parks, di ba? Greenways that can be pathways for increased non-motorized transit, walking, cycling, small motorized vehicles, pwede rin, no? So there is a lot of interest in both of these, di ba? So urban gardens, actually the Department of Agriculture gives away planting materials, gives seminars. Dito naman sa greenways, cities like San Juan, Pasig, Marikina, no? Pioneers yan when it comes to opening up more areas that can become walkable, convivial so that uh, people enjoy being mobile without riding their cars. No? Just to add one more thing, when I was at the HUD-C with the team of VP Lenny, we we finally did an inventory of government lands. No, this is on top of the easements from the rivers. So there's at least 3,500 hectares of government land in Metro Manila. That's bigger than 1 hectare each. And we shared these maps to all Metro Manila mayors. So in a public meeting. So I have this, and this can be shared with whoever is interested, so that you can pinpoint, go do a site visit, inquire as to whether it's DNR, DepEd, NHA, or the housing department, which is the steward of this land. Tapos, those discussions can happen. May sociology yan eh. Ayaw kasing bitawan ng mga government agencies yung public lands. But I suppose that's one area of interest. Ano? Kung idle yung land na yan, why not make them available? Baka meron ding,
Yeah, and
yeah.
And making them available does not necessarily mean letting go of ownership. Di ba? Parang, di sa inyo pa rin, pero habang hindi nyo pa ginagamit, paggamit nyo. Di ba? Temporary. There could be parang interim arrangements or temporary arrangements to convert them to green spaces.
Siguro, may konting kwento. Siguro mga 5 years ago, I was approached by Don D. Alikpala. He used to be the chair of the National Water Resources Board. But at that time, he was chair of MWSS. Now, in Quezon City, MWSS is one of the biggest landowners. And one of its interests is sana hindi ma-encroach itong mga lupa na buffer ng Lamesa Dam. So, tinatanong niya, what can we do para merong institutional use, para merong interested na organizations, para hindi ma-encroach ng informal settlers or gamitin ng iba. So that's one kind of agency that had an interest in transforming the governance of the land assets that they have. Ayun.
Yeah, question. So do you have any insights on gaya ng MWSS, but hindi nila core strength yan, what kind of a partner would they need to legitimize investments in this?
Well, when Don D. Alikpala approached me, I was at the National Anti-Poverty Commission as a senior official there. And ang strength ng NAPC is that it worked with marginalized sectors that were organized. So pwedeng urban poor, halimbawa. And specifically, tinatanong ni Mr. Alikpala nun, baka pwedeng pwedeng may use of rock arrangement so that there are pwedeng residential, may residential na units. They won't own it, but they can live in these buildings. At the same time, they would be stewards, of the environment around them. So certainly organized groups. I suppose local government units, homeowners associations. Actually, the mainstream approach is to work with middle-class homeowners associations, diba? Like here, right outside my gate, we have a park. It's a Quezon City park, but it's being managed by our homeowners association for Quezon City. Kung tumingin ka sa Google Maps, mag-zoom in ka ng konti, you would see green areas. And more often than not, these are inside subdivisions. Normally, ito yung mga natural forests dati na hanggang ngayon mala watershed pa rin sila kasi at that's why they are green, no? Parang naging green sila without anybody taking care of them. Pero pag manage sila ng homeowners association, yun, pwede silang maging park. Ang challenge lang tingin ko that might be of interest to Ateneo, halimbawa, itong parks na ganito, they're inside the villages. Normally, hindi pinapapasok yung hindi residents. But these are public properties. No? So that would be interesting. Just as roads of villages are close to pedestrians and vehicular traffic kahit handed over na ito sa LGU, no? Itong parks, ganun din, no? Parang nagiging property ng middle class villagers, no? Minsan may simbahan din, may simbahan kami. Hindi makasimba yung mga tao nasa labas kasi may gates kami. So that's at yung dean nila sa Ateneo, si Bopip Saloma, she was my classmate in sociology in UP, my batchmate. Siya yung dean yan. She's been writing about parks in the Philippines, in Metro Manila, being inside walls, no, not just subdivisions, but inside malls. Diba? The green spaces where you could walk, may trees pa nga. They are increasingly inside walls. Pagdadaan ka sa street, wala kang makitang parks. Ngayon pala, nasa loob ng Ayala Complex, SM Complex. No?
Yes,
so it's a weird kind of urban configuration. Hindi kagaya ng cityscapes sa ibang bansa where when you walk or drive along the streets, parang the space is inviting. Dito, dahil malls, the space is garish and empty actually, except for cars and walls. So may context na gano'n.
I wonder. Inisip ko, di ba, abroad may concept ng gentrification na nagkakaroon ng shift of spaces for upmarket, higher price residential and commercial spaces. Baka may rough counterpart yan dito sa Pilipinas nga na yun, no, these green spaces can be accessed at higher price points, and then there are some exclusivity or inclusion sort of gates that people who need to get through, no, in order to access these.
Actually, may libro yung Landscape Association of Landscape Architects of the Philippines. Sila architect Einsidel, they came up with this book of parks in the Philippines, no? At they tackled these kinds of questions, yung access of the public, challenge of maintenance, they tackled it. But there's also a discussion that indeed, at some point, parks and green spaces do increase property values, aside from lowering the ambient temperature. Pero pag at a certain level of urban development, naghahanap ng greenery ang mga tao. Below that, ang mga tao would tend to consume all of the open space daw. Kahit yung sidewalk, tinatayuan ng kwarto, di ba? Pero habang tumataas ang income levels ng mga tao, then there is a demand for green spaces. But certainly, green spaces benefit not only the rich, no? Kaya lang, kailangan talaga ng mga tao ng kwarto eh. So, habang mahirap sila, hindi green space yung priority.
Ito, nakita mo ba to? Itong the magic is the mundane. Is this what you're seeing on your
Yes.
screen? No. Ito from the landscape article. So wala lang, I just Googled it. So baka nga, I'll put a hyperlink from the project page to this para lang may
I'll also give you a hyperlink
students.
to one of the maps that shows the publicly owned land parcels.
So hindi ba hindi. One of the maps. So there are multiple maps. Yeah, kung
per city
accessible
per
naman
city.
yan online. Per city.
Hindi
okay.
siya accessible. Yeah. What I have are actually slide presentations. I am not allowed to have access to the raw information kasi
maps.
Department of Housing ang owner ng dataset na yan.
Okay.